Okay, now I think I'm gonna be able to finish up in this last video here. In 1968, this is very important. Believe it or not, was the first 911 call is made. The system began in 1968. That is 52 years ago. Long time, but boy, that really changed things. In 1970, as you see this illustration, we have an automatic call handoff system is invented. And as you can see, and that it is like the cell phone handoff that we see today, where one tower has you in a certain area, and your phone would ping off of that until you moved into the area. You can see these overlapping circles. Move into the area of the next cell phone tower, and then your calls are pinging off of that. And that's how the police are able to take your phone and actually follow your trip. There is a lot that your phone tells about you. I've seen a lot of crimes um, solved because of that. And there are lots of things on your phone that you don't even know that are helpful to people wanting to find you in an emergency. 1973, we've got the first portable cell phone call. This is getting very important now. 1973, that's a long time ago. That's 47 years ago. First portable, they were huge. 1982, the finished product from Motorola looked like this. They were actually even larger than that. My husband, as a physician, in the late 70s and early 80s, had one of the first cell phones in his car. Not attached in the car, you had to carry it around, and it weighed a ton. Um, and it looked pretty much like that once you took it off of its holder. Um, but it was the latest thing, the latest thing. Then we've got, this is the AT&T monopoly all the way until 1982, when the government started to look at it and say that we just cannot allow this to continue anymore because it's antitrust, it's anti-competitive. So it was broken up in 82, and it was broken up into 23 Bell operating companies that would compete against AT&T in the telephone long distance market. This really confused everything. For a long time, it actually raised telephone rates, but AT&T had to let other companies use their network. AT&T would be in the long distance market only, and that was bad because they had the greatest connections between places. And AT&T was bought by one of its children, the Southern Bell Southern Bell Company, in 2005. In February 1996, we have something new called the Telecommunications Act. There can now be competition in the local market. The telephone industry was deregulated. You can now get local, long distance, cellular, high speed internet, and digital cable all from one provider, all over the same network. So the reason there wasn't any competition was because who has the money to start their own networks, to put up their own wires, to put up their own cable? I mean, it was already done. So for the longest time, they just wouldn't let people share this system. But that changed in 1996. Prices go way down. And who owns the internet? Who owns the telephone network? Are they even separate networks? Um, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Um, I don't know how many of you care, but we've got different kinds of systems that quite frankly, I'm not going to test you on because I'm not too sure about them myself. We have circuit switched and packet switched, different types. So we're going to end this here, 2000 and beyond. We should say 2020 and beyond now, but the telephone network is now all digital as of 2000, up to the end user's home. So that's a local loop. Some are digital, which is DSL. Most people don't use DSL anymore. Most are analog phones. Is um, telephony going to become just another application of the internet? It's starting to look that way, maybe. Um, I mean, we have our phones and we can do everything on our phones. It's the everything that we can do on our phones, including photography, has put a lot of businesses out of business. It put Kodak out of business, but I guess because they weren't able to see the future as well as other people. They didn't get into digital until too late. But here are some interesting things that were begun in these years. Caller ID came about in 1991. 911 emergency service, as I said, 1968, and cellular phones in 1984. And of course, they become smaller, then they become a little bit bigger for other uses, then they become smaller again. And I don't know. Telephones may become as small as earplugs one day. Maybe I can envision you just thinking of a telephone number and it being dialed. Yes, our brains are going to be actually wired to things, and then one day we will evolve into we will each be a device, uh, including electromagnetic connections to things. I really do see that in our future if we can live past coronavirus, COVID 19, if we can get past that, if we can get past wars, if we can get past hating each other and wanting each other's territory, um, there's no end to what our brains can do. I've heard once that we use about 10% of our brains. Can you imagine, just imagine if we use 20% of our brains? I can't even think about using 100% of our brains. But I think human beings have a long way to go. I see a lot of good things in the future. Um, every time something good comes about, there are going to be people out there who will find a way to do bad with it, and it would be nice to not have people like that. But that's probably always going to be with us as well. So anyway, here we are ending the telephone.